Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Decisions Lunch and Learn. I'm going to be your host today, once again, Gregory Goldston, on this April 9th. And let's go over the basics. First, check out our YouTube channel. We put new content there pretty often, and most of that content is potentially relevant to what you are trying to do. It's a wide gamut of things that it talks about on the product, from very basic stuff to very complex matters to step by step to more overview and architectural discussions. Highly recommend taking a look. Also, the Decisions product roadmap is back. So you can check that out by going to decisions.com/events to get more info on that product roadmap. And then, of course, the highlight. We got some merch coming up next month, a little less than a month from now. You can sign up at https://decisions.com/events, and it'll be running from Monday, May 5th to Thursday, May 8th. We're going to be going over a new project this time. Typically, we've done purchase requests in the past, but we'll be going over a different project that showcases different parts of the platform. It will be a little bit more advanced than purchase requests, so if you've already done it before, recommend taking a look at it. Okay, well, I think that's everything I have to go over. So I'm going to switch my screen to my decisions environment real quick, and we will get started. Y'all can start putting in Q&A stuff by the way now. So let's put that in, and the screen I'm sharing is the one I want you to see. Cool. Except this is Tuesday. Whoop, whoop. Let's go to Wednesday. There we go. Okay, so yeah. Before you start asking questions, I've got to pull up my attendance list again because, as mentioned, every time I switch screens, I don't get to see the participants. Vitali, to answer your question from yesterday, by the way, regarding the report inline field, it doesn't look like there's a way to do it without CSS. As far as getting two separate image columns that each lead to different links inside of the same column. You can make two different ones. Here, I'm going to go back to yesterday's to show everyone else on the call what we're talking about here. But let's say that you've got a report here and you want to be able to click a link to take you to a website. Well, that's what this does, right? So I'll click this. This will take me to decisions.com because that's what we set it up to do. But here, let me make that full screen again. What the request was to put two different icons in the same column together that each lead to different links. Something I also want to mention about that is you can get these to load dynamically, but what would happen is in order to get these images to run instead of being a static one that you upload, we would need to use a flow inline field, which is not always the most performant option, especially if you're loading images that are more than like 5 kilobytes or something like that. That's why I picked one here that's pretty performant. But yeah, just a consideration with that. But I just wanted to follow up with you. I can look into this a bit, but it does not look like without CSS that particular configuration of two separate images to two separate links in the same column is possible. Rather, just making two columns next to each other is probably honestly, probably the more performant solution. But yeah, just to give an update on that. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to today's matters. Gonna go to Wednesday down here. All right, so not seeing any questions pop up yet, so I don't mind talking about how Decisions handles file storage a little bit, because we touched on that briefly yesterday, but the way that Decisions does handle files is a little bit different. I specifically want to talk about documents this time, because unlike file data and file reference, documents are actually stored inside of the database as binary. So how this works, and it may be easier just to go to Query Editor here to show you what's going on. When you upload a document to Decisions, it gets created in the DBO document field, which includes a lot of information and especially a lot of metadata about the document. Document type, the size, whether it has a thumbnail, whether it's public, hidden, it gives you the entity name of the document. You'll see a lot of preview images in here, just a heads up. Create on date, all that sort of stuff that you'd expect to see regarding entities. What is going to happen if storage is full? Well, I will say that is a database problem, and I can check how Decisions handles that. But I do want to mention something. The actual document data does not get stored in DBO document. This is only the metadata, and you'll notice. Let's find it. Where did it go? It is. There it is. The document storage ID. This is a foreign key which acts as the primary key of the document DB storage table. So if I were to run a query on this, pardon me for a moment, it's going to take just a little bit longer to load this. The document gets stored as a var binary in the database. I'll double confirm the name about that. Um, You're asking about disk storage. Well, document is not stored to. Let me see if I can understand your question. Are you talking about documents? Because documents are DB stored, not file system stored. You're talking about disk storage for whatever hosts the server? Because there's a max limit to this too. So document data, for this particular field in SQL that's stored in has a upper limit of around 2 GB. So you can't put asking about the storage, not the doc. Asking about file storage, not document. Oh, all right. So what happens if the disk is full? I don't have an exact answer to that because I'm not sure if the operation won't perform or if it will start clearing other things and the file gets lost. I need to figure out how Decisions handles that. But the question being asked is, what happens if we are saving something that utilizes the file storage, not database storage, and the server or the external drive or whatever the file basis, the file structure stored on gets full? What happens when we start moving stuff around still? And I need to check on whether the data gets lost, like truncated, or if it starts running like jobs to delete old ones, or how it handles that specifically. And I am not 100% sure on the answer of that, but I can ask. We got another question. How do you make a flow run part on a page dynamically fit a screen slash zoom size? I notice that everyone's screen size may be different or what zoom setting they may be using, so depending on the form, you need to be able to adjust that. Ooh, good question. All right. Well, I know. So I'm gonna mute you because I'm pretty sure I know what you're talking about here. Give me just a moment. There you go, Grant. You should be able to talk now. Okay. So what we're talking about here is we've got a form. Do I have a good form here? Like one that's easy to display. I don't have any forms here. Wow. Okay. Well, we're just gonna make one real quick. All right. So we're gonna create a form. This will be our demo form, and this form is gonna contain some fields that would look wonky if they were not in the right place. This will be name, name, email, email, and then just sub submit button. Save that. All right, that's all we need to showcase this. So we have a form that's going to be displaying on a run flow part. Um, Vitali, I will get back to the second part of your question in just a moment. All right, so now that's created, let's make a page. All right, and now let's make a run flow part. I'm gonna put it here for now, just so we can alter the size a little later, and I'm gonna make it bigger. All right, flow run part. Pick that. Pick existing. Actually, we want to make a flow. Create new. Show the form. That's all we want to do, right? So, I mean, obviously, we'll probably have more logic in this in actual environment, but that's not what the question is pertaining to at the moment. So, demo form, pick that, output, let that stay there. It's fine. We don't have to put anything in. Save it. Preview's not gonna run anything because it's not actually running. So let me add this to a dashboard real quick. All right. Public folders, test dashboard. Cool. I can just add a new folder to this. Add page, pick page, this page. Yes, please. Save, click. All right, cool. All right, so now this is displaying here. So we put in something here, you hit submit, and it'll just pop up again. So what your question is saying is, okay, this looks fine, but we have different users that have different screen resolutions, so we can only bend and shrink the form so much, right? Something along those lines.
Yeah, exactly right. Like there would be sometimes we have like horizontal forms that go more horizontally, and like that submit button may be cut off. So then you have to move the little cursor at the bottom or the scroll bar over just to see it. And I just was curious, can you just do on one page, or like can you have it just all on one screen if that makes sense? Or do you have to keep the scroll bar at the bottom?
There are ways to avoid it depending on how the form is designed. I'm trying to think of a more like check this box and this fixes the issue sort of fix, you know? That's what I'm trying to like what's the simple fix of this? Because something that could be done is okay, these we have a max limit here, right? We have designer width and designer height. We can alter those, right, to make sure that it would fit on our particular form. And then also with these, where is it? Each row is like one and then size of something, right? So we could make these smaller and resizable. Because watch, if I change this to zero point 0.5 resize, and then I change the other one to zero point 0.5 resize, it's going to look identical to how it did before. The only difference is now how small these columns can get is now been altered, right? So these columns don't have to take up as much space now if the form were to be in a smaller state. Now, I'm not sure that's a direct fix to what you're talking about, but there are some design considerations of stuff you can do like that, where functionally it looks identical on the layout, but when it's actually put in place, it might be able to kind of squish a little bit more than you need it to, you know? So, let's see if we can create a problematic form real quick where this actually comes into effect. So let's go to our page real quick. I'm going to make this smaller. All right. Let's see how this runs and see if this is a problem real quick. And then after that, we'll see if we can make it not a problem. Okay. So this is not a problem yet. Let's see if we can make it a problem. I'm going to delete, I'm actually going to move this here. I'm going to delete this whole bottom part. Can I select just this? I can't. Oh, that's fun because it's a separate. Ah, I see, I see. Okay. Well, let's see here. How can we make this a problem? What if I make the width like 1200? See if this will cut off real quick. Save that. Exit. Test dashboard. Grant page. All right, here we go. So now it's starting to cut off, right? The designer width is too wide, and now we've got the scroll bar issue.
Yeah, that's exactly what mine's doing. And I've tried making it smaller, but just with how much information's on the form, I can't make it any smaller than what it is.
Hmm. What we might need is a new feature. Let me check if this is out in 9.8 or 9.9. Give me a moment. Because there is a new feature that will allow for form design where if it gets too big on the form, it will then move it to the row below it. So it pushes everything down. This is actually a new layout inside of forums that is either out now or it comes out in 9.9. So let me I can check that for you. Wrong thing. Let me check here. Being layouts, do we have it? I'm not seeing it. Let me confirm something on my other screen real quick on the other end of stuff and see if I can find this. Pardon me for just a moment. I have a feeling it's probably out in the next version, but let me just check real quick. Release notes, 9.8. Minimize this, and then that ain't it. Yeah, I have a feeling this is in version 9.9 where they're coming out with this. But you mentioned the problem is there's just too much information and you have to scroll. You can't just like make the things smaller, right?
Right.
Let's see if we can try something here real quick, okay? Let's hit edit.
And I tried even messing with, so I have the flow run part in a grid on my page. I tried messing around with that and that didn't work either.
Hmm. It is about the form width. That's exactly what it is. So it actually is dependent on that form width. It means just the width of the form is too big for that to handle. Man. Okay. So if we were to go back and edit this, so let's see here. We made this to 1200. Let's make this 800 again. And then you know what? We're gonna make this a little prettier as well. Yeah, I would say that probably the best option at this point is to work with the resizing of that in order to fit it. Because what's happening is that the actual width of the form itself is what's contributing to that. So I don't know how wide your form is. Let's go all the way across the top here, okay? Let's do this. Let's go all the way across the top, save it, go back to our form. Drag this up. This doesn't need to be nearly as high. Let's go 300. And then go into here, and then we can delete this, delete this. One more delete should do it. Yeah, there we go. All right. And then I actually want to make this, hold on. I actually want to make this 1200 again to see what that max width is before we start hitting problems, right? So let's actually set this to 1200 again. Save that. Do you know how wide the form is that you're using in yours?
Let me verify that real quick.
Okay.
It is 1500.
I just got it with 1200. Don't tell me it's 1150. Hold on. I'm gonna guess it's 1150, isn't it? Still a little too wide. Look at that. Look at that tiny bit right there, right? So let's drop it to 1100, see what happens there. Let's drop it to, let's work our way up actually. Let's drop it to 1000. Interesting. Oh, I know why. You want to know why? This, I think this part right down here. Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right. So this column, this row, column is one increase. Do we have to have margins? Let's see if that resolves it. If not, I think this is very interesting. Doesn't actually resolve it. I get what you're saying. It's interesting why we can do 800 in the other one and it's fine. But the moment that we start editing this, even though it should have been well within that acceptable amount. Let's try this again. It's still displaying it there, but the moment we drop it 800 in here, it's fine. Let me figure out why that occurs. Because, yeah, it should be able to handle longer than that. It should be able to handle a lot longer than 800. Because we could handle 800 down here fine without any scrolling. What would be something that... I'm going to mess with one more thing. Yeah, let me figure out why it does that. If you're seeing a large scroll bar, it's just definitely too long. But for that small one right there, that's shouldn't be affected by resolution. That's interesting. Because yeah, look at this. The moment I drag this over here, right, and I make it even smaller, like much smaller, no scrolling. But the moment I put it up there, it stretches it out. It scrolls it. I am gonna try something actually. So what happens? Let's make that a little bigger. We got a margin of error there. Let's go around 350. And then for this one, let's also go 350. Now I'm curious. We go into our page. No, something to do with the actual form size itself with that scroll. Hmm. Yeah, Grant, let me look into exactly what um is causing that. Vitali's got some advice as well, saying you can put JSON controls reside the form based on the content with CSS. Yeah, so you could make a custom JSON control for that. CSS scroll off can also remove the scroll bar. So just dropping the scroll bar together with CSS control. And you're saying it's the one resize that's causing the issue with when our form is still one resize. The rows, columns. You're saying that? I believe that you need to create two grid layouts to avoid issue. So one grid layout, one grid layout in the other half. Hmm. I will check if that functions. So two grid layouts, right? So we got to drag this down here for a moment. You know, we can just put this back. Delete, 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 delete. Okay. Two grid layouts. Here's our main form. Column, we're going to edit this. This is going to be 800. Well, that is going to scroll a little bit because the actual form width is 800, right? So let's change that to 795. Not on the form, but on the page. Two grid layouts on the page. Okay. So like inside of here, just have two separate ones that's going across instead of four. See if that works. Let's fix our form real quick and then we'll do that. And if this doesn't work, we'll go back and test it. All right. All right. Cool. Save. Done. Go back to our page. Drag this over here. See if this works. Save it. See if it's what's actually being stretched across the background that's affecting it. Well, oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. See if that works. So instead of having, all right, so right here, this is our outer grid, right, to contain this stuff. And then I'm going to drag another grid inside of it, drag this over it, drag this up here, save it. Might have to make it smaller in some way, like add margins or something like that. All right, there's a grid layout. There's another one right here. So if we click on that, rows, columns, row gap and column gap is 10. I'm going to remove that. I'm going to make no columns. We're going to have a margin of 10 on the left and a margin of 10 on the right for this particular one. And we're going to drag and drop the other one inside of these margined ones. Drag this in here, drag it here, Drag it here. Give ourselves a little viewing window. Save it. View. Wow. Okay. Yeah. I'll pull this back and I'll try and figure it out for you, Grant. I'll see why it's being wonky in this one.
All right, sounds good. No problem.
All right. Cool, cool, cool. All right. And Vitali, let's go back to your other question that you had, which is what if you give a name for a file starting with the forward slash to go up in the folder? Um, I haven't tested that. I haven't tried using that. Good name for a file starting with forward slash. I assume that actually I'm not sure how I would handle that because typically when you're using file upload steps, you use backslashes. So I'm not sure if it would recognize it as an incorrect character or try to name the actual file that. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. So let's bring up a flow real quick here. Hold on. File moving. All right. I'm going to use the move file step just because it has what you're looking for here. So move file takes a file name, and the file name is the full path, and that's what you're talking about, right? You're saying something that starts with bump, 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 and then slash, whatever, decisions is saved in program file, slash decisions, slash decisions server, something like that. By the way, I'm not going to move the settings XML and break everything, so I'm not going to actually put like a real file in here. At least that's in this particular one. But you're talking about like using just create a file there. Okay. Create a file, give it a name. Data actually gets specified in here. I can upload something, that's not an issue. And then the file name here, let me here's the decisions logo. Oh, I think I need that. Here's the decisions logo. Okay. And you're talking about like naming it dot dot slash that. So what's interesting about that is, hmm, thinking about how that works out, Linux type environment. I don't know what it would do with that. Might break. Yeah, might just break. No, it worked. That's pretty cool. Hmm. So it does seem to run somewhere. Very cool. I'll see where it ran. Cool. Yeah. So that does just take stuff from your local drive and puts it into the subdirectory from there. That's exactly where it went. It went inside of my decisions file storage. Or sorry, my decisions folder, not the file storage inside of the decisions folder. But yeah, very neat. That's exactly where it went. You know what? That kind of makes sense. Thinking that's kind of similar to how like you go with PowerShell, where you're doing a change directory and you put the two periods to back out. If it's going to take it from wherever decisions is located, running this stuff, you have the decisions server folder that's typically running that, so back up to program files and then do the subdirectory from there. So yeah, I can confirm that that hypothesis is correct, but that kind of makes sense. Cool. Um, I see we have a new person that joined, so feel free to ask questions, put them in the Q&A. If you have anything, I'll give it another few minutes. Otherwise, if we don't get any further questions, we'll just end the meeting. Technically short, but we've gone over 30 minutes, so doing pretty good there. All right, I'll exit out of this. Also, something that's important to do if y'all want the file to be like properly read, make sure that you give it an actual, extension on it. Otherwise, it's just going to save like a typeless file. Okay. Um, I think we might end this early. Um, yeah. Hmm. Something that's important to note as well with the file moving stuff. So, not so much in the create file sense, but when you're moving files around, it's good practice if you don't need the files later to move files from their proper decisions directory in file storage to the location that you want them, whether that's an external drive or a shared network folder or something along those lines. Because what happens is instead of creating a file to the path that you want it, if the file didn't already exist, you would instead be moving it, which is going to avoid creating duplicates to that path. And the way that Decision saves files is very predictable. You have a folder tree under file storage. And if you click on your instance, typically primary if you're not running multi-tenant, and then select either flow data or temp, it will give you a directory of numbers listed numerically, followed by letters listed alphabetically. And by inputting the first number of the file's ID, you get taken to another screen just like it. And then you put in the second letter or number of the file's ID. And then you're taken to where the file is stored inside of the decisions file storage. So you can use that to pull from the file. For example, this is going to make a lot more sense if I give you all a visual for this. Adding references to folders. Wrong thing. Error fetching stored files. All right. So here I use the split string to get the first and second characters. And then I removed the last item from the list. And the reason I did that is just so I could pick first and last when setting up my directory. So I set my directory to be program files, decisions, file storage, primary flow data, the first character, and then the second character of that ID. And then you search it by the ID underscore file name. You do not need to add an extension here, as this file name is going to include all of the information necessary to find it. And all this is doing is the move file I was suggesting, which in here I'm having you specify a directory to move it to and the file that you uploaded. So what's happening is instead of creating a copy of that file to move somewhere else, it moves it directly from the decisions file storage. Okay. Well, I think that's going to be it for today then. Thank you very much for attending. We should have Rob leading the last one for this week, and I look forward to seeing y'all there. Thank you.